Palace are struggling at the moment because they've let, even though Marc Guehi and we talk about all these players, they've let one of the best men that work at that football club leave, in Dougie Friedman. Dougie Friedman was the best. The way he brought in gems and Palace improved them, the likes of Eze, no one took a risk on him. Elise, Adam Wharton's going to be the next one.
Just 8 months ago, Oliver Glasner and Crystal Palace were lifting the FA Cup.
So fast forward to now, without a win in 10, captain Marc Guehi sold to City, knocked out of the FA Cup by 6th tier Macclesfield, and then Glasner, who already admitted he's leaving at the end of the season, says this.
I said before, we feel that we are being abandoned completely, and selling our captain one day before a game, completely no understanding for this. We're preparing, and then yesterday at 10:30 I get told that our captain will be sold. So why not next week, that we can play at least this game next week? And other players are coming back, and that's makes me really upset today.
So as we record this, he's not been sacked. He hasn't left, but does his anger over player sales ignore the reality of where Crystal Palace are in the football pyramid?
So would it be too cynical to suggest Glasner is trying to get sacked? And is this just the latest of a line of managers who are airing their dirty laundry in public?
Welcome to the Sports Agents.
It's not just managers, it's high-profile members of the country's most famous family. But let's not start with that today. Hello, chappers.
Hi, Gabby. Who are the... I do know. Do you mean the Beckhams?
Yes, yeah. I mean,
Not
even
the
Even you, who doesn't dip his toe in celebrity gossip, must know what happened last night with Brooklyn Beckham. But that's not strictly a sports story, so We're not going to discuss that today. I'm in Milan, by the way. This is what this backdrop is. It says Milanese, doesn't it?
Not Bodo Glimt.
No, we lost that one. That came up in dinner last night, though. How the sports agents campaigned for that. So sadly, no, we're not going to be at Bodo Glimt.
Look, if Bodo Glimt get through. And to be honest with you, it's been a few weeks since the Champions League, so I haven't looked at a Champions League table. If they get through, we'll continue the campaign, shall we, to get you to Bodo Glimt for the knockout stages?
Can you imagine Newcastle at Bodo Glimt? That would be something else. So yeah, we'll continue that if it happens.
There was a lot of football this weekend, and I did. I think the only one that I didn't see or do anything with was Brighton Bournemouth. So obviously, I'm not dedicated to the role, so I missed that one. But there was a lot. There was a lot of football over the weekend. There was a lot that was good. There was some of it that was just tedious. I won't go into the tedious ones. And then there was some that was just mad. And in fact, the maddest one was the AFCON Final, which I actually didn't do. And when I got home from doing Villa Everton, I got home and my son was like, "Oh, we need to put AFCON on," just as Senegal were walking off.
It was mad. It was also I don't understand that penalty at all.
No.
I we had a long conversation about this last night actually at dinner, were Morocco for some reason trying to throw it? What was going on there? The whole thing was just chaos. And we were obviously on the Sports Agents discussing this last week for the weekend edition, and Jay Harris from The Athletic told us that it was an absolute done deal for Morocco. They were going to win this and it was going to be very comfortable. So Senegal obviously threw their toys out the pram, went back into the dressing room. And I was sat next to Mark Clattenburg, and I said to him, as a referee, can you not abandon a game at that? What's your and he said that he wouldn't, if he was officiating, he wouldn't have been able to abandon the game. That would have gone down to officials who were around the match.
I mean, it's kind of easy to say just abandon it, but there must be so many things that go into that, particularly if you're in a final and fan behaviour. And I know it would have been the away team in Senegal that would have been punished if that had been abandoned, but there must be so many layers and levels that go into a conversation like that. And also, just for those officials, that can't have ever happened. I can't think of that happening before in this situation. Can you imagine being prepped as a referee or an assistant to deal with anything, thinking you know all the laws of the game, and then then one of the teams walks off in a major final with the eyes of the world on it?
Interestingly, Mark, I don't know if I can say this actually on the Sports Agents, did tell me about an owner that he knows. I mean, you can do your investigations there. Who was suggesting after a dubious decision, as he thought it, during a match last season, wanted his team to leave the pitch, and Mark advised against it.
Look, I think probably as fans, not many of us own football clubs, but as fans, we've probably all been there where we've wanted our team to kick off and protest and
I wanted
walk
Newcastle
off,
to leave the pitch on Sunday to save us all from the absolute dire display that they were putting on.
just both teams, just leave the pitch at half time and don't come back out for the
We're never going to
half.
get this 45 minutes back in our life, so everybody just go home. Take a point each. Let's be done.
Oh dear. So, but the only other, and I know everybody kind of goes, oh, you know, what a terrible look and blah, 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 blah. And look, I know it's not great, but everybody has been talking about it. And everybody, if they were looking at social media or whatever and weren't watching the AFCON final, would have flicked it on to see that. So I always think it's a little bit hypocritical when we pile in and go, you know, well, nobody wants to see that. I know it's not the right way to behave, and you shouldn't behave like that.
But everybody wanted to have a look at that.
And everybody's talking about it. Everybody's talking about it.
And the clips have gone absolutely mad. Yeah. So the other, you didn't talk about this when you were describing the weekend and the various enjoyment factors in matches. You must have been absolutely thrilled with Manchester United's performance and thrilled that you got to cover it on Match of the Day.
Yes. Yeah, I think as I tried to sort of ask on Match of the Day as well, I just think they were exciting and they were entertaining with United against City in the derby. I think just the nature of it, the nature of Manchester United over the last few seasons is why haven't they been performing like that? If they can do that, why haven't they been performing like that? It can't just be down to tactics and not necessarily knowing where they're meant to be at any one stage or personality clashes. So there's some onus on the players there to go, where has that been at times this season? And then the other, it's not a question mark, but it's you don't want to go out, as Roy Keane said on Sky, you don't want to go overboard. They have been known to perform decently in big games over the last 2, 3, 4 years. You know, they did win at the Etihad last season, and Ahmad scored a couple of late goals to do that. They did knock Arsenal out of the FA Cup, albeit on penalties, last season. They have won at Anfield this season. So, but as Wayne Rooney said on Saturday night on Match of the Day, it was the nature of the performance. And I do get that. In some of those games that I've mentioned, they were kind of hanging on or they didn't need penalties or whatever it may be. But now it's, okay, you've done that there, and it's Arsenal away this coming weekend. But then when you have, and this immediately is disrespectful, I understand that, but when it's Fulham at home, which is traditionally a fixture like, you know, Bournemouth at home or West Ham at home or Everton at home this season where United have struggled, are they going to be able to be as exhilarating at times in those games as they were in the derby?
Because you'd imagine they will be up for it at the weekend away at Arsenal.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it'll be another huge moment for them to show that, you know, they potentially are back against the big teams, the big occasions. But as you point out, it's the more... I don't want to use the word mundane. It's the more kind of routine fixtures.
It's the games where the expectation is on them to go out, dominate and win. And that's where they have struggled. The other thing is, and you try not to in this job, but when you know someone or have worked with someone and it goes well for them, you are absolutely delighted for them. And we've worked with Michael this season. He's done a bit of punditry and stuff. I am really, really pleased for him because there's so much noise around it and so much kind of, I don't think anybody's been disparaging, but just that, keeping the seat warm kind of vibe around the appointment. I'm just really pleased he's off to a good start, really. I just want to mention the Bears. I know you probably want to talk Australian Open tennis.
No, look, it's like your Bears trump.
Oh, do you know what, Gabby? They are... They have given me... They went out. They got knocked out on Sunday night in overtime. But for years they've been terrible. For years they haven't had what you would call a franchise quarterback, someone who can lead. For years they haven't had a head coach that you really want to buy into. And this season they've had a first-year head coach in Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams, who is Chicago's quarterback at the end of his second year. And he has got so much flack in the past because he was the number one pick in the draft. He sometimes likes to paint his nails. Oh, how can you be a quarterback if you paint your nails? He is different, and he is an absolute superstar. And there were all sorts of rumours in the build-up to the draft. He didn't want to go to Chicago. His dad didn't want to go because Chicago were a basket case of a team. And this season, they have had late comeback after late comeback after late comeback. And they have, if you are a Chicago fan, and I think this is what you want from sports in general, I know I bang on about it, they have been so entertaining and they have given me so much joy. And even though they have gone out, you could just sit here and go, that was just the most fun that I have had in so long watching and supporting this team. And if people haven't seen it, he threw a touchdown pass in the fourth quarter with 30 seconds to go that tied the game once they put the kick over as well, that tied the game. That is, even if you know nothing about American football, if you watch that on YouTube or wherever, it is one of the greatest throws you will ever see. And Chris Collinsworth, and who is on NBC, used to play the game, their veteran co-commentator, said, I just look, in all my days, I have never seen anything like that. And it was just one of those where you just kind of, genuinely, I nearly had tears in my eyes as he threw that.
I've actually got tingles.
Honestly, because it tied it and still gave us a chance. And we are all fans and support sport for the goosebump moments and the entertainment. Yes, you want to be successful and stuff. But honestly, it just kind of, every time I've watched him and the Bears, it just puts me in a great mood. And that hasn't happened for a long time.
We won't talk much about the Australian Open, and there haven't been too many goosebump moments. But there was an impressive first round victory by Novak Djokovic, who's now gone to 100 victories in the Australian Open. He's got a century of victories in all the majors. His records are phenomenal, and he took his top off after the match just to highlight the physical specimen that he is as well. So that gave some people goosebumps. From a British perspective, our Jack Draper, of course, is injured.
Right.
He's still getting back from his shoulder, I believe, problem.
Does this mean he's not our Jack Draper? Have we moved on?
I think even more so.
Oh, right,
if you
okay.
stick with somebody when they're injured, they're more likely to come on the sports agents when they're
very
back.
true.
Yeah. So I've had my eye on Arthur Ferry. He beat a 20th seed Flavio Caboli in the first round, and that's his first win in a Grand Slam outside of Wimbledon, which is a big deal because Wimbledon, obviously, we have more Brits in, so you expect a few more wins. His mum was a former professional player, and she rang him when he qualified and said, "Can I come?" He said, "Yeah, okay." So he said in his post-match victories kind of interview, he said he's pleased his mum gets to see at least 2 games now. So he's got 62nd seed Thomas Echeverry in the second round, which is tomorrow, I believe. So I'm going to be keeping my eye on that for you.
Good. Excellent. As always, send in your questions, sportsagents@global.com, on email. You can find us on social media or via the link in the episode description.
And you can catch up with all past episodes on YouTube, Global Player, or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can leave a comment or review when you listen, and hit subscribe if you like, so you don't miss any of our episodes.
Next up, Oliver Glasner says he's been abandoned completely. We'll discuss it with former Palace player Clinton Morrison and Dan Cook from the HLTCO Palace Fan Channel. Dan, can I start with you? Because before we get into everything that's going on behind the scenes, I just find this whole thing just really, really sad. And I'm not even a Crystal Palace fan, but if you want new teams or new clubs to flourish, different teams to win things, people to challenge the elite, it is really sad.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've done a lot of, I wouldn't say soul searching, but I've done a lot of deep thinking over the last 72 to 96 hours. And I can't sort of help but settle upon the view that Oliver Glasner potentially thought that upon winning the FA Cup, we could smash through that financial glass ceiling. And the realities of the situation are just not that free and easy. I know that might sound a little bit reductive, but there was no way for us to not sell Abiri Eze for £67 million in the summer to Arsenal when the player himself was desperate to go and when we were making £50 million of profit and he wasn't going to sign a new contract. And similarly, Marc Guehi for £20 million is a fantastic deal for Manchester City, but he's got 5 months left in his contract and he's not going to sign a new one. And the manager has already told the hierarchy in October of 2025 that he's not going to be staying. So I'm not quite sure what Oliver Glasner expected the club to do. It is very sad, but it just feels, unfortunately, like the realities of the situation for a club of our size are hitting home. And I don't want to talk out of turn, but it feels quite childish from Oliver Glasner to sort of want the club to back him for the entirety of this season when he's not going to be here come the summer.
The other thing as well, Clinton, about this, and Dan, I think what you've come to after your 3 days of soul searching there, I imagine you probably at the very beginning had those thoughts. You've been through all sorts of emotions and you've come out and sound quite pragmatic. And that's the thing, Clinton, isn't it? Because when he's gone into this job, Oliver Glasner, of course, as a manager, he's ambitious, he wants to do great things. He's probably exceeded even his own expectations in what he's done. But he knew exactly the kind of club, or the kind of club he was joining. He knew exactly the kind of role that he was going to have there. And he knew the history of this club in selling players when they can accrue a big profit for the club. That wouldn't have been a huge surprise.
Yeah, exactly. Spot on, Gabby. Listen, it's difficult because obviously I have to be. I'm not being careful what I say. I know Glasner, and I've got to go to the training ground on Thursday. I know the chairman ever so well, Steve Parish. What you have to realise with Crystal Palace, it's hard for me to say it. I think Dan summed it up ever so well. Palace are not a club that can compete with the Champions League clubs like that. So Oliver Glasner knew when he was coming in to Palace, it was a stepping stone. If he'd done well, the next step he would do is go on to manage one of the big clubs. And he's there talking at the moment about, and I understand, I totally get where he's coming from, where he's saying he does need new bodies in the building. So I get that. Palace, I've always said it, they've got a basic 12 or 13 players that he relies on at the moment. So they do need players coming through, but you can't come out and have a go at your chairman like he's done, because I've seen it before and we've seen it with other managers and clubs. Evidently only one thing happens and you end up losing your job. So he knows what he was coming to at Crystal Palace. He does know what he was coming to. As I said, he'll go down in my eyes as being Palace's greatest ever manager at the football club for what he's done. It still could be a good season if he gets his head down. They can win the Europa Conference League. I still think they've got a great chance and finish as high as possible in the Premier League. But all this noise that he's making at the moment, I know he's frustrated, but for me, I think it's a case of he's trying to probably, and everyone's looking from the outside, trying to get sacked, where the chairman at the club is too clever to sack him. He's like, well, if you want to leave the football club, you're going to have to walk away.
Speaking of the chairman then, Dan, if you had been Steve Parish and the Palace board and director of football the summer just gone, with the FA Cup won, what would you have done differently to what the Palace board have done?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I'd have made sure that we'd signed a bit of paperwork.
Yeah, that would have been a good one.
Europa League rather than the UEFA Conference. But on top of that, you look at like the Abiri Eze sale. Again, it frustrates me slightly because you've got a situation where the player himself had given 5 years to the football club. He had scored in every round from the quarterfinals to the semi to the final of the FA Cup. We won it with a goal from him. He wanted to go to Arsenal. We cannot stand in the way of Abiri Eze if he wants to make that move. It would have been, suicide really, because you've then got a player that's not happy, you're denying him that. You then end up in a situation where he's of an age profile where you can't get the amount of money that we did from Arsenal. So in terms of a direct replacement, Yeremy Pino came in from Villarreal. I'm not suggesting that he is a direct replacement for Ebbs because it's almost impossible to do. You bring in a young lad from La Liga, new language, new system, new league. It's going to be an adaptation period. I happen to think that Yeremy Pino, from a technical perspective, is perfectly fine. He could do with putting on half a stone of muscle, but that's something you can work on. And in terms of bolstering the squad further, I know it didn't happen in the summer. We broke our transfer record at the start of January to sign Brennan Johnson for £35 million. You go through it. JD Canvo was 20 million, Ismail Assar was 12, Chadi Riyad was 15, Romain Esse was 12, Eddie Nketiah a year or so ago was £30 million. We cannot spend the sort of money that Manchester United's and Manchester City's and Arsenal's do, because PSR regs are so tight, and we live in an environment with a 25-seater stadium and no corporate income, where you'll end up with points deductions if you overspend that. So as much as people can say you should have spent more money, there is no guarantee that at the end of the window, when Oliver Glasner, by the way, pretty much forced the club not to take £35 million from Liverpool from Marc Guehi, knowing he wasn't going to sign a new contract, he then walked out in October. So if we'd spent another £30 million in the summer to appease Oliver Glasner, and he still made that decision to move on, we're left with no budget and a new manager coming in, no captain, the entire squad in disarray, all because you've danced to the tune of one guy with no guarantee that he's going to be around for the next 3 or 4 years. So I understand spending more. I don't think it's as straightforward as that.
Can we just talk about Oliver Glasner a bit more, though, Clinton? Because there is a slight pattern here, isn't there, in terms of his previous roles and how he's ended up leaving those jobs. At Wolfsburg, he had a row about the failure to strengthen the squad after he'd taken them into the Champions League. At Frankfurt, Eintracht Frankfurt, he also fell out with the sporting director there about a lack of new signings. So he's done this before. So you kind of knew in a way what you were getting into bed with, somebody who's incredibly ambitious and also will talk publicly about wanting new signings and how he sees the direction of travel. There's a lot of talk about where, you've said it, where he sees his career going. Was Crystal Palace just a stepping stone for him?
Yeah, I do. I think it was a stepping stone. So if it's a stepping stone, you don't need to come out now and start saying all the things that you're doing, because you've done everything that you've wanted to do at Crystal Palace and everything that you've wanted to achieve. I think at the moment he's disappointed because Palace haven't won in 10 games, so the pressure is mounting on him at the moment. He needs to start winning football matches. He's not in a good position. Well, he is in a good position for what he's done previously, but over the last 10 games, he's not in a good position because you're not winning football matches. So you can't go knock on the chairman's door and basically say, oh, we want players and I want you to spend X, Y, Z. I totally understand where he's coming from, as I said it previously. They do need more bodies through the building, because when Palace are hit with players that have been at AFCON and players that are injured at the moment, the players that are coming in are not good enough, in my opinion. So it is a bit of a pattern we see with Oliver Glasner, and it'll be interesting to see what his next move is, because, yeah, he will get one of the big clubs, and let's see how his behaviour is then. But I actually do think he has done a brilliant job.
Would that put you off?
I don't know. It's a difficult because he's at a big club. So the big club, he's going to get the money and there's more pressure on him. He knows, having not had any wins in 10 games, there's no pressure on him at Crystal Palace at the moment, because Palace are looking for a manager. They haven't got the right manager since they know he was going to leave since October. So he knows at the moment he can say whatever he wants to say, because there's no pressure at the moment. There's no one coming in. They probably won't appoint someone until the summer. Where if you're at a big club, Gabby, and you're not getting the results at the moment, the pressure will mount on him. So he knows he can't come out and question the owners and saying, I'm not getting any backing from above, because they'll say, we'll move you on and we'll get someone else to come in.
What big club, to use your phrase, do you think he might go to?
Well, listen, I don't think he'll go Man United. I know all the outside.
No, I don't either.
He plays the same way Chappers as Ruben Amorim. It's already showed that 3-4-3 is not going to work. Palace have got the better players to play that formation. Man United don't like it. You see, I know it's only one game, but you see how Carrick's done there. So I think probably somewhere back to Germany. The only thing I could see, and I don't listen. No one don't hold me to this. No one don't hold me to this. Don't hold me. Don't hold me to this. I think.
Does it start with Tot here?
No. I could see the Tottenham thing. I could actually see the Tottenham thing. I could eventually see it. But this is something I see in the future, is maybe Vincent Kompany going back to Man City when Pep moves on and he's getting to Bayern Munich. He's got the experience in the Bundesliga. That is what I could see. Tottenham, he would jump at Tottenham, I think, at the moment. But I don't want to talk about any manager who's still in a job at the moment, Chappers.
Why not? Why not? You're a pundit. You're not a you're not
all right.
Not a manager or a chair.
All right, listen what I'm saying.
It's your job to do that.
All right, listen to what I'm going to say. Thomas Frank is under huge pressure. Oliver Glasner is calling out the chairman. So for me, it looks like, I don't know, but it looks like maybe if Thomas Frank goes, could he get the job from now to the end of the season at Tottenham? But listen, you're going to Tottenham. They're under huge pressure. Those fans, they'll give you about 3 games and then they'll want you out the door if you don't get a win.
Dan, it would be worse, wouldn't it, if nobody wanted Palace players? If Palace couldn't make a profit on players, because you haven't got the marketing budgets of the big Champions League clubs. You can't, get any more people into your ground. There's a certain amount of money you can make from being Crystal Palace in terms of the brand, but you're going to have to sell players. And isn't it great that you've got this incredible recent run of producing or bringing on players, whether they're from the Championship or they're from Ligue 1, to actually become top players at top clubs?
Yeah, for sure. And that, unfortunately, for Oliver Glasner, it's the model that we have to adopt to be successful. There is a great deal of luck because you can have hits and you can have misses. We've had a string of hits. Michael Olise, for me, is the best attacking talent we've ever had at Crystal Palace. I've been saying it from the moment pretty much he arrived. And I love Wilf and I love Eze and I love players like Clinton and Andy Johnson through the years. Michael Olise is up there. And we got him for £8 million. But if you look at the mechanism that we exploited to do that, he signed for us with a £35 million release clause as part of his deal. We managed to pull it out of the fire at the very end and get him to extend on a £50 million release clause, but he still ended up moving to Bayern Munich because no player of that level is going to sign for Crystal Palace and stay there for the rest of their careers. So it comes back again to what we've been saying. There's no way that Oliver Glasner walked into this job and thought, well, Palace can keep hold of these players for the rest of their playing days. It would be ridiculous. So I'm very, very pleased with the business that we've done. I mean, I was looking through the Championship the other day. Middlesbrough, Ipswich, Derby, Leicester, Southampton, all, if you talk about passive fan bases and potential and everything else, they're arguably bigger clubs than us, and they're down there scrapping it out in the Championship. We've been in the Prem for 12 plus years now. It's not a God-given right. And that comes with recruitment and thought processes. So, as much as Oliver Glasner gave us the best day of our lives as Palace fans, and I still listen to the bit of commentary with Clinton and John Murray on a semi-regular basis from the final whistle, life goes on.
And actually, Dan, you mentioned a couple of teams there, Middlesbrough and Coventry. If either of them didn't go up, there are players there that you would probably be interested in as a football club to bring in to replace some of the ones that have gone, because that is the nature of football, isn't it? And how the pyramid works and how the food chain works. Do you just one on player release clauses, actually? I was with Dan Byrne last week at Newcastle. We were talking about Semenyo's move because he had a release fee. And Dan said to me, it'd be so much easier if every player just had a release fee and then you would release clause in their contract and then everybody would know what the situation was. As a fan, do you think that's easier to accept when a player moves on? Well, look, that was the fee. It's been met. We can't do anything about it.
Yeah, it takes the jeopardy out of negotiations for sure. The only problem that arises is you end up in a situation where the player will hold the club, not to ransom, but we all knew that £50 million when Michael Olise signed that second contract was achievable. And he did that because he knew it was achievable. I think in Spain, every player in La Liga has to have a release clause. But you end up with these bonkers figures like €500 million, because it's like it has to be there, but we're not going to sell him. So it is, in an ideal world, everyone would have one and you wouldn't have the haggling. But players, I mean, I made this point, and I'm sorry to sort of make the laboured statement here, but like the reason Arsenal are able to build with Mikel Arteta for 7 or 8 years is because Bukayo Saka will come through their academy and be happy to sign contracts for the rest of his playing days. Declan Rice will leave West Ham as a European trophy-winning captain from their academy and move to Arsenal because that's a destination club for him. They can do that. They can build pieces around others for 12 to 18 month periods and they can improve. We can't do that because we have to constantly blow up the blueprint and re-sign players from, Hayden Hackney at Middlesbrough is a prime example. If he came in, he would spend 2 or 3 years with us, and if he flourished, he'd go to a top 6 club, and there's nothing we can do about that, really.
And that's okay. You're happy with that. That's your model. As fans. Yeah.
We have to be happy with it.
And so when a manager takes on a role at a club like that, where that clearly is the model, that's what makes the outburst seem a little bit disingenuous, Clinton, because he knew what he was getting into. And reports are there's £2 million left on his contract. Steve Parish, he won't be enjoying this at all. Do they go to him with some kind of financial deal and ask him to walk away now, or will they hang out till the end of the season and we can all sit and enjoy, put up the popcorn, put our feet up and watch every Palace press conference that there is this season?
Yeah, I think get the popcorn ready, Gabs. I think it's going to be one of those. I can't see the chairman. He's a clever businessman. He's proper shrewd businessman. He's not going to say, all right, you can keep having these outbursts. I think by all accounts, they must have spoke on Sunday, and he just said, you're the manager from now to the end of the season, so you've got to deal with it, and you've got to get these players winning football matches again. I said it still could be a good season. I still think we could go and win the Europa Conference League, so I think he just has to get on with it. He's still going to have his outburst. I can't wait till the window shuts or gets to the end, so we can see what players have come through. He is right. Palace do need players in. The one thing I will say, and I've said it all along, Palace are struggling at the moment because they've let, even though Marc Guehi and we talk about all these players, they've let one of the best men that work at that football club leave, in Dougie Friedman. Dougie Friedman was the best. The way he brought in gems and Palace improved them, the likes of Eze, no one took a risk on him. Elise, Adam Wharton's going to be the next one, Marc Guehi, all these players, Ismail Sarr. I questioned him when he brought him in. I said, what are you bringing him in for? Nowhere near good enough. He's proved me wrong. The likes of Mateta as well, who could move in this window. And they've not brought a replacement for him at the moment. So I can understand Glasner's frustration, but that's down to the hierarchy to sort that out. But yeah, I still think, Gabs, he'll be there until the end of the season. But if he has 2 or 3 more outbursts, watch this space, because you can't keep talking to your owners like that.
Are you happy, Dad, if he does stay till the end of the season? And then the second point of that is, I always think Crystal Palace are quite brave in their managerial appointments. They don't always go for the obvious, and sometimes it pays off and sometimes it doesn't. So does the thought of who may be coming in next excite you or worry you?
To address the first point, I would expect for him to remain as manager for the rest of the season, unless, I mean, Sunday against Chelsea is going to be a strange sort of exercise, because they aren't necessarily flying. Liam Rossini isn't comfortable in that job yet. They've won 2 of their first 3 games under him, but it's his first Premier League away game. I firmly believe that Oliver Glasner, he may have misjudged the sort of tide a little bit, I think, because he may well be coming into that game on Sunday thinking, I've won these fans their first ever major piece of silverware. They are going to back me categorically over the ownership. And I don't believe that will be the case, because you know what football fans are like. We're tribal. So if a man says, I don't want to be here anymore, he literally said, I don't care who manages Crystal Palace in his post-match comments on Saturday. If we're 2-0 down after 20 minutes, that's going to turn toxic very quickly. And towards him, the whole feel of the place will be horrible. So I'm not sure, 1, if you can continue to work in a job if the results don't turn around, and 2, every single time you come out in a post-match press conference following the defeat and shift blame, that, as Clinton said, you can't keep on doing that. In terms of the next managerial appointment, it's silly, really, for me to throw names out there. The one thing look, I'm not sure. I mean, at the end of the day, my main concern is making sure that the manager who comes in has some semblance of a transfer budget to work with. Because if you completely run the cupboard bare and you say, look, the manager before wanted us to spend all this money, so we did it, they'll be saying, well, I'm working with one arm tied behind my back. So there needs to be a degree of burying nuts for winter. There will be, I think, particularly in the summer, once Glasner does go, there will be this expectation from the fans that we've got to get back to basics. We've got to try and rally round the squad again. And I'm not looking forward to it, but this whole last 6 months with the UEFA situation, with the contract situation, with Marc Guehi's transfer saga, it has felt like one blow after another. So it would be nice to get a manager in on, say, a 3-year contract and say, look, he's committed, the players are committed, this is what we're going to do.
Excellent. So you're not naming any names?
I've heard Roger Schmidt is a name that has been thrown around. I don't know anything more than that. That's a name that continues to crop up in. But again,
isn't
that
is again that's interesting, isn't it? Because that is, God, it's not left field, obviously, but I mean, it's different. It's different.
No, but it's innovative. Yeah, I will say that Oliver Glasner's success as a Palace manager has at least launched the boil of that, because we went towards Frank de Boer and it was an unmitigated disaster and he was gone after 7 games. And I think there's this sense, or there was a sense prior to Oliver Glasner, that you need an Alan Pardew or a Sam Allardyce or a Tony Pulis or a Roy Hodgson, someone who knows the country, knows the league, etc. Oliver Glasner has blown that out of the water because he's our most successful manager. He came from Austria, Germany, etc. and he transformed us within a 12-month spell. So there won't be that sense of trepidation from the ownership or the fan base as to a manager coming in from further afield and having potential success with us, which is a help.
Does it feel like managers, for some reason, are being a bit more bold this season in talking about their disquiet, their feelings of being abandoned, in his words, disgruntled. Maresca, obviously Amorim, didn't work out well for those two when they did speak out. Obviously, I mean, I think they were gone by now if you kind of go back to their press conferences where they spoke out, whereas Glasner is still in the job. Is it cultural? You named a list of managers there that potentially come in. They were all English, weren't they? So is it a cultural thing, Clinton?
Oh, that's a good question. That, do you know the problem with? And I've always said it. The Maresca and the Amorim, they were head coaches. So basically, the club above are running the football club. I always say it. Some of those top clubs, they just want yes men, and that's not being disrespectful that the coaches are there now. They basically want you to go out onto that pitch, coach the players, and we'll deal with stuff. When Maresca was losing his job, he had the hump with the medical staff. Everyone thought it was the hierarchy. The medical staff are telling him that player's in the red zone. You can't play your best player for the whole of the game, but we're drawing and losing the match. So I'm taking off Cole Palmer, Reece James, and I want to play them. I think it's a bit different at Palace. Even though I do think the hierarchy do have a say in who they bring in. So I don't think it's all Oliver Glasner. Glasner brought in the likes of Kamada because that was a player that he knew from Frankfurt. Frankfurt. So that was a bit different like that. So I think it's a different kind of situation. And what it is different with those clubs like Chelsea and Man United. They're big football clubs. So if you're going to argue and go toe-to-toe with big football clubs, you're going to lose your job. I don't think Palace are in a position where they can just get rid of Glasner just like that because it's a different football club. But a name that I did hear, and I'm not sure if he will take it, that was floating around, it was Gareth Southgate. But I'm just putting it out there. I just drop a little curve.
Yeah, I mean that's always been there, Clinton. That he was there when the academy was open, the Category 1 academy knows Steve. But again, we're in a weird position as Palace fans because on one hand you look towards a Palace Academy graduate who managed England, who did a very solid job. I know we didn't win the thing, but but then again people sort of say, oh, he's boring, he's this, he's that. I don't know what people want. I don't necessarily want Gareth Southgate, but we're Crystal Palace Football Club. It's not a case of every single year you've got to level up.
Do you know what? He's not boring, is he? He's decent and he's normal, and that's the problem in football sometimes.
The problem in life, Mark.
I can't imagine him coming out in a post-match press conference and saying he feels abandoned.
No,
I can't imagine that.
Exactly. We will leave it there. Dan, Clinton, thank you both. See you soon.
So after the break, we're going to jump from 2026 to 2016. Yep, we are jumping on the bandwagon.
I don't actually know what that means.
I actually believe you don't know what that means, Mark.
I'm aware. I've read things that people are going back to 2016, but I am kind of oblivious to. I've heard say Scott mention it on the radio or whatever, but I'm kind of oblivious to what's going on.
Cultural prism, isn't he? He's through which you view what's going on. Scott is the person.
Scott's my even though he's older than me, Scott Mills is my conduit to what goes on with young people. Yes.
Well,
absolutely.
What they are doing, young people and some older ones, is showing photographic evidence of themselves in 2016 on the platform known as Instagram. And they put these pictures up and it's like 10 years, oh, look at me then, what was I doing? I don't know why this has happened now particularly, because this could have happened any other New Year period. So I haven't done anything on this, Mark. I haven't posted anything on Instagram.
Okay,
Sorry.
but on the WhatsApp, because I thought when the producer said, just think about what you were doing in 2016, it's kind of like, God, I have absolutely no idea really. And then you posted a picture of you dressed like Marie Antoinette. And I was
Marie Antoinette.
You were Marie Antoinette. And I do remember that because for the Euros in 2016 in France, the BBC team were, let's say, forced to film a trail for the event where we were all dressed like, I don't know, 18th, 19th century French people.
Yeah, including the picture that I posted. Gary was at the front, Gary Lineker. Yeah. Alan Shearer was just behind him, but we were all in this kind of royal court in Greenwich, weren't we? In this fabulous room filming this thing. And it was like a proper film set. I mean, the budget must have been way beyond what we're spending now.
I mean, I had a wig and like the very elaborate aristocratic French outfit, and I mean, as you can imagine, Gabby, I completely and utterly threw myself into that for the morning. Safe to say, that photo, I don't think I'm even on the official photo because I was so pissed off at the whole thing. I think I may have just been left on the cutting room floor.
And it didn't work out well anyway for England in that tournament, if you remember, in Euro 2016, did it? In fact, there's a 6 degrees of separation because, of course, Roy Hodgson, we've been talking Crystal Palace a lot on this podcast, was the manager there. And I read a really funny little kind of post the other day when Oliver Glasner had his outburst, somebody saying, Mrs. Hodgson right now in a penthouse apartment somewhere in southwest London, locking all the doors and hiding the tracksuits. But it is interesting going down sporting memory lane of 2016, because it was the Rio Olympics. And that was one of the things that I kind of put on our little group. And, those things seem like yesterday. Oh. And that's what kind of blows your mind about a decade, isn't it, in sport? That things that you feel like happened a couple of days, a couple of months ago, years ago.
It's so fresh in my memory, bits of the Rio Olympics. I can remember... I think I may have been presenting. I say it's fresh in my memory, and I can't actually remember what I was doing. But I was doing a highlights show, and I had on the same show for the rowing, the women's 8 and the men's 8 the same evening, with a question to each of them. And at my feet, that you couldn't see, like pictures of all of them with their names written underneath to try and remember who was who out of the 16 people.
You're pulling back the curtain now. You're revealing the secrets.
It's just got to sometimes. So I love that Olympics. That was a great Olympics.
And there was the picture that really tickled me was I used to do a show on the BBC which went through various different guises and names. I think at this point it was called the Premier League Show, where I'd travel around the country and for some reason hook up with somebody in a cafe and then chat about football that week. And the picture was with Shay Given, and we were having a cafe. And I remember this cafe, it was somewhere in the middle of the Potteries, I don't know why. And maybe Stoke were probably still in the Premier League. Yeah. And he looks, we both look young, but it's funny, kind of still working with some of these people now, obviously, which is lovely. And he was sat there kind of looking all fresh and new to the home. Now he's jaded. We've dragged him down. But it was it is an interesting and fun exercise to do. And I was looking online to see if I could see whether you are still wearing that same black jumper on Match of the Day that you were wearing in 2016. I couldn't find it though.
Let us know what you were doing in your sporting lives in 2016. Get in touch with us via email, thesportsagents@global.com, or message us on social media, or via the link in the show notes.
And remember, all of our past episodes, sadly not back to 2016, but we do have 2 years worth now, are available on YouTube, Global Player, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Nothing wrong with making fashion last, Gabby. Make sure you subscribe or follow and leave us a review.
I'm in Milan. It's Men's Fashion Week. I'm surprised you're not here.
Oh, where's my invite?
Thanks for listening.
The Sports Agents with Gabby Logan and Mark Chapman.